It has already been mentioned that the university started as a vocational school in 1922, when the colonial government thought they really need some people to make their beds and the chairs and build houses. And so they started with a technical school, which was offering things like carpentry, masonry, mechanics. But later on, about 2 years later, they introduced medical care, agriculture, and teacher training. We started in grass-thatched houses. So you can see these children in grass-thatched houses, in their kanzus, doing the carpentry and masonry. They are called the first medical graduates, but they were not doctors. They were, I think, medical assistants who were coming out of the, if you want to call it a medical school. So these are two of those, Dr. Baziwane and Dr. Bamundaga. Now, as the college took root, it became more interesting to the colonial government. And I think they thought, yeah, maybe this is a place we can invest in. And so, in 1928, you can see the King Edward VIII. By the time he came, he was not yet king. He was a prince of something. He came, and here he's inspecting a guard of honor of Makerere students. So the colonial government started taking serious interest. Now, the period from around 1935 to 1949 is the period that I would call the period of expansion and resistance and the move to higher education. Because at that time, the new governor, he was called Governor Mitchell. The one who started is Corendon, Governor Corendon. But Governor Mitchell thought, now we could move to some higher education. And so in 1935, Makerere became a center for higher education. And in 1937, started offering post-school certificates, not even diplomas yet. And then at that time, the colonial government requested the University of London to affiliate Makerere. But the University of London refused. I think they saw grass-thatched houses and said, do we really want to affiliate with this kind of institution? So they resisted. They did not affiliate Makerere University immediately. It took 12 years before Makerere was affiliated to the University of London. Why resistance? Because in 1937, when the governor decided that we need to expand Makerere University, he needed to get more land on Makerere Hill. But most of the land was being occupied by landlords, Vataka, and they resisted. And they tried with the king then, King Chwa. They failed, so they turned to the Katikiro at that time, who was a strong Katikiro called Nsibirwa. And Nsibirwa signed a document which allowed the colonial government to annex land in public interest. Now, Katikiro Nsibirwa was eventually assassinated, apparently for that decision, on the steps of Namirembe Cathedral when he was going to pray in the morning. So there was resistance to the expansion because the Vataka thought the colonial government wants to take away our land. They did not see as far as the Katikiro Nsibirwa was seeing. During this period also, there was some major infrastructure development and also the admission of the first female students. So then we started, as I said, infrastructure development, expansion. That's the building that Charles was talking about. It is the Dorset building in the School of Education. It was among the first buildings, the old Mitchell Hall, named after Mitchell because of his contribution to to higher education in Uganda. You begin getting now new programs. So we introduce fine art, and those students are in the fine art studio. And then in 1938 was the breaking of the ground for the new main building, which is that one there. And it was done by one of those princes. So that's the main building on completion in 1945. It took 7 years to build that building because it was being done during the World War. And the materials were not easy. The materials were coming from England, including the timber. And yet we have so much timber here. I don't know why they were bringing it from England. That's the first female students in 1948. And they are posing here with Mary Stewart, who was instrumental in advocating for the girl child education at that time. And we also named the hall after her. The period after that is what you could call the period after World War II, the struggle for independence. So it was also a period now for further expansion and modernization. New courses were introduced: literature, basic sciences, the arts, and the social sciences, including political science, for good reasons. This class here is the class of Dr. Josephine Namboze, and she was the first woman doctor in the whole of East and Central Africa. Now, you people be careful when you see what your children are, which games they are playing, because they might decide what they become in the future. You can see here Dr. Milton Obote playing the role of Caesar. So is it surprising that he became a president? He was practicing power when he was still at Makerere University in the 50s. I said it was a period also of infrastructure development. And so you start getting these new buildings, including agriculture. So you can see the new building of agriculture being opened, buildings at Mulago, and at the school of, at the College of Education. That year, 1959, was also instrumental in the history of Makerere University. That's when our library was opened. And it took the Queen Mother to come and open it. So here you can see the Queen Mother being led around by the principal of the college then, Sir Bernard Bunsen, who is also famous for the Bunsen banner, because he's the one who invented it, as the principal of Makerere. So that was opening of the university library. Since she was also the Chancellor of the University of London at that time, she also presided over a graduation ceremony here during that visit. And the graduation was taking place just opposite here at the College of Agriculture. So you can also, it was a period of gender mainstreaming when we started recruiting more and more women. And then for the first time, also putting up a major hall of residence for the women students. The first Mary Stewart Hall, this is Mary Stewart, the first Mary Stewart Hall is what is now our guest house. But it was felt that we need a bigger hall, and that structure was put up in 1959 as well. So 1959 is a very important year. But of course, at that time, you had people who were agitating for independence. All the leaders at that time, political leaders, were agitating for independence. But it was also a period of producing the leaders of our independence: Nyerere, Kibaki, and all the others, and Obote, of course. And Mutesa too was here. We actually have a small museum where he was living as a king, but as a student as well. Now, so independence comes, And the new leaders think we must break these links with these colonialists. And so they decide to break links with the University of London. And in 1963, 29th June, they created the University of East Africa, now offering our own degrees. Because before that, the students were getting degrees from the University of London. So from 1963, we begin offering the degrees of the University of East Africa. And we begin getting new programs, Bachelor of Laws, Faculty of Social Science now becomes a complete faculty, and there is also major infrastructure development. So you can see now those developments coming up, big halls of residence, bringing in more students, okay, and also new faculty buildings. But I must say that I have skipped one important issue, that the university was built originally by the colonial government, of course using Uganda money, but later on, at the period of expansion, when the main building was being put up and most of the older buildings, all the districts of Uganda at that time contributed to the construction of Makerere University. There were 18 districts. 18 districts, and I think you remember them, those of you who were born at the same time as me. You talk of Acholi, Lango, Karamoja, West Nile, Bunyoro, Mengo. Uganda had, I think, two big ones, East Mengo, West Mengo, something like that, Kole, and of course my own big one, Vukedi. Vosoga, and all the others. 18 districts. Each one of them contributed a minimum of 2,500 pounds to build Makerere. 2,500 pounds in 1940 was big money. And so this is the first graduation ceremony at Makerere University. The first chancellor of the University of East Africa was Nyerere, and I think he remained the chancellor until we now became an independent university. The first recipients of the degrees, of honorary degrees at Makerere, were Dr. Lamont, who was a former principal of the college, and the President Jomo Kenyatta. They all received honorary degrees. Actually, now I'm thinking of following up Uhuru to make a contribution, because we honored his father that time. That's the first class of the law school. The law school started in the main building. The main building at that time, the whole top floor was actually empty, and it was where the law school was started. And there, I think they are the only people who had opportunity to pose with the principal then. Y.K. Lure was there posing with them. Now, after independence, every African country thought they must have their own university as a symbol of independence. And so in 1970, the University of East Africa was split, and the three colleges became independent universities of the three countries: Makerere for Uganda, Nairobi for Kenya, and Dar es Salaam for Tanzania. The declaration was made on 1st July, but the ceremony to inaugurate the university was done actually at Makerere University on 8th July 1970. Okay. At that time, again, you begin getting now new programs, because these were programs that were being offered at the colleges. So all students who in East Africa who wanted to do engineering would go to Nairobi. Those who wanted to do economics would go to Dar es Salaam. Those who wanted to do medicine would come to Makerere, like that. So now we begin introducing those programs that we did not have here, so that we become a fully fledged national university. That picture, I think, is even on our website now. Nyerere as the chancellor, okay? It had to take 4 presidents to declare Makerere an independent university, okay? It is then when we introduce new buildings, especially concentrating on the technical subjects. So the engineering, veterinary medicine, and the others which were in it, the other campuses, as I said, got new buildings at that time. There is what I describe as the dark ages, 1972 to 1986. It was a tough time for Makerere University. At that time, our Vice Chancellor then, Frank Karimzo, was murdered. And then there was a massive exodus of professors and other faculty. We lost more than half of all our professors during that time. Student leaders also went into exile. You know names like Ruhakana Rugunda, Mutevile, Emmanuel Musime Mutevile, and even Barnabas Nawangwe. They all went into exile. Okay. And also it was characterized by infrastructure decay. Then after 1986, we start getting these people back, the return of the exiled faculty. Of course, many of them decided to go into politics and government, except one who is still here, okay? This one came back to his roots. Then it was also the period of liberalization of higher education. That's when we started, because before that, it was one university, all students being sponsored by government, but now higher education was liberalized. So we started getting new universities. IU was the first one to come on board, then MAST, and then, of course, later on, many others. We are now more than 60. It was also a period of explosion in enrollment, largely because of World Bank policies, which had told our governments that, you don't need to invest in higher education. Just invest in basic education. These other people can go to Europe and America, and if they want to get degrees. And it caused a lot of problems for universities. However, at that time, the development partners, good friends came. And I have a long list there. It is not the complete list of people who have supported us from that time up to now. And I'm very happy to see you, Gite, from Sweden. Sweden alone has trained for us more than 400 of our staff to get PhDs. That is more than half of all the PhDs we have on this campus. So we are really very grateful. Norway too gave us a lot of support, USAID, Rockefeller, and all those that are listed there. Now we had to close the loop, and we started introducing new programs. Sometimes some people have argued some of them were not really necessary. I think that is one of the things that Mamdani talks about in his book. But all those new programs which were crucial for national development, but we did not have, were then introduced. And that is the infrastructure. So there was a kind of a boom. So liberalization, many private students, we get a lot of money, and all the buildings on that slide were built out of the money coming out of these private students, including the expansion of our library. We have the biggest library on the African continent. We have the largest number of volumes of print and also online journals. In 2011, we decided to go collegiate. So we moved to a collegiate university, and we had to modernize the curricula. We increased internationalization. We instituted a research culture. We did administrative restructuring and also emphasized innovation. Here you see President Museveni and President Kibaki inaugurating the 10 colleges at this same Freedom Square on the 24th January 2012. So we now come up with the research agenda. We say we must now do more research, and so we come up with that research agenda, which we have been following. And that moved the university. The creation of colleges was really also to synergize the expertise in doing more research, and that has actually worked, because we are doing much more research than we were doing ever before. At the moment, we are ranked as the second most research-intensive university on the African continent. Research centers were introduced on top of those which existed before, because these are very important for ensuring that we can do research effectively and efficiently. Some innovations, what I would call cutting-edge innovations. The electric vehicle, the first one on the African continent. Naverapine, which was a therapy which developed at Mulago by our professors, which is the one that prevents the transmission of HIV from a mother to a child during birth or during pregnancy, was developed here at Makerere. It is being used all over the world. The tuberculosis rapid testing kit is also being used all over the world, but it was developed here at our medical school. COVID came, and we were very active during COVID, coming up with more than 200 innovations just for COVID. But of course, the most popular one is the low-cost ventilator, the anti-tick vaccine, which now is under mass production, helping our farmers to avoid losses due to the loss of their cattle because of tick-borne diseases. We now have a vaccine that can control that, developed at our veterinary college. E-diagnosis of malaria. Students came up with an app using a mobile phone where you can check if you have malaria without being pricked. You just use a phone. And then improved seeds. Agriculture has done a lot in the area of improvement of crops, particularly improved seeds. Now that's one of the new buses by Kira Motors. Kira Motors is a baby of Makerere University, so when we made the first vehicle, the government said they take it over because we don't have the capacity, which is true, to produce cars on a large scale. And now there is a big factory coming up in Jinja. We also are shareholders there. We have a whole 4%. Now, this bus is being used at the airport. Some of you may have used it already. It is an electric bus. Okay. The ventilator, the minister there launching the ventilator, and of course, the agricultural crop improvement projects. Now, okay, so after all that, what are we saying? This is what my boss, the chair of council, was saying. Can we leverage our successes of the past to solve new society problems? So we scan the environment, and what do we see? We see rapid population growth. Uganda's population will cross 100 million mark by the year 2100, I think. We are still 40, no, I think even by the year 2050. By the year 2100, we shall be 200 million if we keep producing at the same rate, okay? Youth unemployment, we are already feeling it. Riots, climate change. We are the worst affected geographical region on Earth. The Great Lakes region is the worst affected. We fear disasters. Our students proved that around 1600, Lake Victoria dried completely. Now, what will happen if it dries again with this population? Food insecurity is a big problem. Emerging diseases, and also conflicts, which don't seem to end. So this map just shows you the changes in the population of the world. So in 1800, Asia was the most populated. By 2100, Africa will be the most populated. By that time, half of the population on Earth will be living in Africa. And Uganda is a big contributor. And at the same time, this map shows you what we are contributing to research. It is actually negligible, 2%. So the new strategic plan that the chair talked about, we want to be the hub of transformation, of knowledge for societal transformation in the heart of Africa. And what are we going to do to be a research-led university? We must modernize the research infrastructure. We must modernize laboratories, come up with a central laboratory, because we know we don't need to build the laboratories in every college now. We can have central research laboratories, research centers, teaching and research hospital. We need a teaching and research hospital very badly. a science and technology park, which will actually help the young people incubate their ideas into businesses, begin companies, and create jobs for this multitude of the youth coming out. And of course, further human resource development. Other things, an inclusive university, professionally managed partnerships, and we really like partnerships. We are the most partnered university on earth. We have partnerships by all the ranking agencies. Makerere University staff take #1 in publishing with a staff at another university. So we are the leaders in partnerships and, of course, innovation. So, what is our promise? Our promise is that we are set for the next century of service to humanity. And what are we praying for? Our prayer to you all, as the chair and the vice chair said, is we invite you to be our partner as we continue building for the future. Thank you.